please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
A rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirtbags off these streets.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Thunder rolls, the fire's in the sky. We've been waiting for this moment all our lives. The darkness gathers, the evil takes its form, but side by side we ride into the storm. They thought they could blind us. Together we ride into the
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Friday. Hope everybody is doing well out there and having a fantastic start of their week. It's Tuesday. It's DEF CON day for all of you Badlanders out there who love DEF CON 0. We will be on tonight in about an hour and a half from now, and that is at 10:30 Eastern to about sometime. Don't know usually what time it goes till, but till about sometime. And so that means that we have a very limited time to do this show, but that's okay. We typically can get everything that we want to say in an hour. So what do we have to say? Well, there's a lot of things happening right now. And, you know, it's kind of like the preparation for everything. I don't know. It feels like we've been prepping for this for a fucking decade, but you know, I'm just as impatient as everybody else on accountability and everything that's happening in the world. But I do understand that these things take time. And to quote Bill Barr there, these things take time. And I understand that this is a long process. This isn't going to be a very, very short and quick scenario. This is potentially going to be something that is going to take a very long time to get to the bottom of, because as Kash Patel and A.G. Blanche have said, is that there is just millions upon millions of documents that they have to go through of incriminating evidence. And, you know where they found those documents? They found them in burn bags in a hidden skiff inside the FBI building. Huh, that's just odd. My thoughts, there's no hidden skiff inside the FBI building. Skiffs are tracked. Skiffs are freaking allocated within inventories, all the documentation inside of those things. You don't put burn bags in them. No, that didn't happen like that. Instead, that information was given to them through the U.S. military, who collected that information over the last decade and a half. Now, why is that important? Because it shows that an ongoing military operation is still continuing. What we call the Q operation, but they probably have a different name for it. And the interesting part about all of that is that we are about to see the beginnings of retribution. We're about to see the beginnings of people being held accountable for their actions of sedition and treason against the United States of America, against President Trump, against the American people. Everything from 2016 and impeachment 1, impeachment 2, the Mueller investigation, the stolen midterm elections, COVID-19, the 2020 elections, January 6th, Mar-a-Lago raid into the 2024 election, the various different assassination attempts on President Trump's life, Charlie Kirk, everything. I hope that we see justice in all of these, but I can only hope and pray. Now, the work has to be done by the Department of Justice. The work has to be done by this administration. So we will see where it goes. Today, we had the funeral of Lindsey Graham. I will mention this. 17 days after he died. 17 days after he died. And contrary to what many people are saying on social media, here is a good, clear view of his casket versus John McCain's casket. Now, people have said, oh, Lindsey Graham's flag was polyester and John McCain's was cotton. No, Lindsey Graham's is definitely cotton. They use cotton flags on those. But John McCain's is intentionally wrinkled, where Lindsey Graham's was ironed and draped. And so not wrinkled. In other words, this wasn't a Rommel trial. This wasn't Lindsey Graham taken out by the White Hats. This was Lindsey Graham, most likely, in my thoughts and my perspective, and from what I've gathered, was killed in Ukraine. trying to retrieve something for President Trump because nobody knew he was there. If you remember the whole situation, he was actually in Turkey for the NATO summit. He left early to fly into Poland, took a 10-hour train ride into Ukraine, and then a 2-hour train ride to a drone facility. Went and did the facility for 1 hour, and then a 2-hour train ride back to Ukraine, and then a 10-hour drive back to Poland, and then a 12-hour flight back to the United States. The timeline doesn't make sense. Lindsey Graham dying at home. Instead, it makes sense that he died in Ukraine. How? Most likely an assassination by the deep state, by the globalists, by somebody who did not want Donald Trump to get a hold of whatever Lindsey Graham was picking up there. And I do believe that Lindsey Graham was picking up the server that Zelensky has utilized as leverage over the Biden administration and potentially held away from President Trump for a very long time. What server? The CrowdStrike server, the DNC server that was in Burisma in eastern Donbass in Ukraine for the 2016 election, the smoking gun of evidence that links directly CrowdStrike, George Soros, Ukraine, the DNC all together in a coup attempt to take out President Trump with election interference from Russia with a coordinated campaign there, as well as to steal the election for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Now, will we ever see the light of that server? I think we will. I think that potentially it was even delivered to President Trump today. Because who was in town? Zelensky. Zelensky was with Netanyahu. That's kind of interesting. I've talked a little bit about this over the last few weeks. Netanyahu and Zelensky both, in the midst of proxy wars, both completely dependent upon U.S. funding for their wartime efforts. Is there a deeper connection between Israel and Ukraine? Yeah, there is. I'm not going to get too deep into it in this show, but understand that Ukraine has a very, very large Zionist Jewish population. Lots of towns in eastern Ukraine, actually, that have been war torn. A lot of Jewish settlers came in and basically took over those towns. That comes from really good source information. Now, why does that matter? In the context right now, I think it matters because they have common interest, but also that Ukraine, in my perspective, is a for-hire intelligence agency globally. Right now, Ukraine intelligence is operating in Iraq to undermine and overthrow the same Iraqi government that President Trump just met with last week, that President Trump is guaranteeing massive amounts of money for renovations, for rebuilding, and for reconstruction. Now, you got to ask yourself, why is Ukrainian intelligence inside Iraq right now operating false flag operations? Who does that benefit? Does that benefit Ukraine in any way, shape, or form? No. Does that benefit Russia? No. Is that bad for Russia? No. Who does it benefit? It benefits a small little country in the Middle East called Israel. Now, when you start to get into this, we know that the first two attempted assassination attempts on President Trump's life had connections to Ukraine. Is that something we should be thinking deeper in? I think so, because maybe there's a deeper connection from Ukraine on over to the border into Israel. But hold on a second. Do we then need to extrapolate out and start thinking about what Josh has said in the past? That maybe the connectivity isn't nation state derived, it's corporate derived. That it is corporations, big mega conglomerates that control these countries, especially the ones in proxy war that are in a bid for massive amounts of power and control, specifically energy and oil. Just saying. Be a good little dig to look into Ukraine and various different mega conglomerates who operate out of there. Now, what am I insinuating? I don't know. Maybe we'll have to talk about that a little bit more tonight on DEF CON, or we'll have to talk about that later this week because there's other news to get to. But it's definitely a rabbit hole I want to go down. But I think that hopefully, over the course of the next few weeks, this begins to unravel more of the connective nature of these two countries and why both of those leaders are in Washington, D.C. at the exact same time And a week after, Larry Loomer goes and interviews Zelensky, almost like Netanyahu set that up on purpose, because he did. Today, the Senate confirmed Jay Clayton as the new Director of National Intelligence in a 51-47 vote. So Donald Trump came out. Congratulations to the great Jay Clayton on his confirmation by the United States Senate to be the next Director of National Intelligence. Jay is an outstanding in every way. Will do a spectacular job as director. Now, what type of expertise does Jay Clayton bring to the job at ODNI? Well, when you start talking about Jay Clayton's historical experience, it's finding money that's hidden. Remember that. Finding money that is moving through hidden channels. And when you start talking about deep state intelligence apparatuses and the CIA and various other organizations moving money through dark channels, Jay Clayton is the exact person to start looking at the financial records of these organizations to begin maybe pinpointing how that money is moving through the taxpayer to these organizations or internally within these organizations, or even the way it actually works, how these organizations set up shell companies. They hire employees under these shell companies. They have certain people that come in and run and operate it, including NGOs or other international organizations. And then they operate basically a scam, a scheme, or drug running, human trafficking, or some other type of criminality through these shell organizations, which then they funnel money into black bank accounts, offshore bank accounts, usually through the Bank of London, to basically fund all of their various different coup attempts around the world, including the 2020 election. So hopefully Jay Clayton can come in and get to the bottom of that. And like I said, we have multiple different tiers that are happening right now. And all of these different tiers have different context of information that they're uncovering. Bill Pulte has fired over 30% of the ODNI workforce. He announced today, in addition to the historic declassifications transparency by the president, we are this morning executing the fifth and near final round of terminations, an approximate 30% staff reduction from weeks ago. The intelligence community must protect the American people, not the political whims of the bloated and corrupt elite class. Pretty huge. So 30% of ODNI's workforce is eliminated. Hopefully this will make Jay Clayton's job a lot easier. But that doesn't mean shit if you're not going into the other intelligence agencies and doing the same thing, specifically the CIA. And you notice how John Ratcliffe's name doesn't come up too much anymore. John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, his name is very rarely even talked about in Washington, D.C., in the mainstream media and in alternative media. Why is that? Well, I haven't heard of John Ratcliffe going out there and doing any layoffs or any firings. I haven't heard John Ratcliffe doing anything intervening in the declassification effort. In other words, I've heard the opposite. I've heard John Ratcliffe hiring people who are deep staters directly associated with the Democrats into his top echelons at the CIA. I've heard of John Ratcliffe stopping the information from flowing over to ODNI for declassification efforts. Does John Ratcliffe have to go? Is John Ratcliffe the next check box on Donald Trump's "you're fired"? I sure hope so. And I hope something comes out relatively soon that marks that, because I got a few ideas of who's going to be a good potential to run the CIA. And it's not John Ratcliffe. So we're about to get into the whole idea of voter fraud and what's being uncovered right now through ODNI, through the declassification efforts. Now, when we start to think about what DNI Pulte is actually doing, this is an interim guy. This guy's an intermediary between the White House and the intelligence agencies. He's going in there and he's basically being told by Stephen Miller and other people in the White House, this is what you need to look for. This is what you need to find. This is what you need to declass. You need to locate these, save these for the time being, and fire these people. We talked about this when Trump originally appointed Pulte. Remember, when Pulte was originally appointed, I said he's an interim. It's not an official nomination. It's an interim. And that he is the intermediary between the White House into the ODNI. Now, with Jay Clayton coming in, we can only hope that Jay Clayton does the job that he's supposed to do. All right. I feel like sometimes I'm like robotic in the context of just repeating this stuff. I don't know why, but let's have a little bit of fun. So I hope you guys are all doing well tonight, by the way. I'm just really tired today. Had a show with Nino. I was on the General's Corner with Nino. So one of his subscription shows, I did a Zoom call, answered a lot of questions on there. Hi to everybody from Nino's Corner who came on over and did a lot of work outside. And it was a very hot day. Visa fraud is just as bad. Oh my goodness, visa fraud is just as bad. But hey, what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to bring Gabe on for just a few minutes. We're going to talk to Gabe because we got to support those who support this show, right? We got to support those sponsors who support this show. And then we're going to keep on going on with the information that we're going to talk about tonight. And that has to do with the information being put out by DNI Pulte, as well as some new information that we got, as well as some Fauci information, some Fauci information. And then we're going to go a little bit into, well, Iran and all of that stuff. So, Gabe, are you there? I see his picture. I don't know if he's there. No,
I'm there, man. Hey, man.
You in the golf course, or is that like a...
Oh, I got a little game for everybody here. So I'm in the beautiful Rocky Mountains. So what you can do, we still have our special going. The 250, we're gonna keep that going for a while since it's the 250th. Remember, the two larges are always a great deal at that price, and then we're throwing in this tumbler, which is better quality now because they're priming the tumblers as well. I mean, it's always been great quality printing, but now we're a little more durable too, you know. So and then we also have the 4th of July special, and that'll still be going for just a little bit longer, and that's the get a large and a free small. And I know so many of you guys know what GOODBRU is. It's a symbiotic organic or inulin fiber, which is the kind of fiber our gut microbiome has evolved to feed on, that produces all the great short chain fatty acids and metabolites and all of the things that really make our gut healthy and our gut lining healthy, in combination with Bacillus coagulans, a specific strain of Bacillus coagulans, which is a spore-forming probiotic. And the spore-forming probiotic is something that nature provides to us from the soil and things that we eat, that makes it through the stomach. It doesn't get destroyed by the stomach. It germinates in the lower intestine, where it does some very specific things. It increases protein utilization. This is clinically studied. Digestive function and immune function, but also what it's doing in combination with that inulin fiber is it's really creating a great environment in the lower intestine for all those very important microbes that control so many things related to our health, from mental health to inflammation to chronic disease. People would tell us that it helps them with their skin. We've had, I mean, I'm just telling you what testimonials are. Obviously, we have tons of testimonials related to acid reflux and GERD and chronic constipation. And then people who just realize that once they start using the product, how much a good gut health really benefits them. So, you know, I know Josh uses the product. So many of you all use the product. We have this very high reorder rate. We can get, some days we go into more detail. I can tell Josh is in a hurry and he's tired and he's got a short show. So I'm not going to get too into all of those things. Just remember, you use Redpill at checkout to get 10% off, and go and use GOODBRU, spelled BRU, /Redpill. And when you do that, if you are buying the product, do that and add the discount. And if you want to play this game, there's a pretty iconic 14er behind me. Next to it, there's a 13er and a 14er. If you know what that 14er is, use that GOODBRU, BRU.com /Redpill. Go to our contacts page and send me a message with your contact information, your shipping address. And the first 20 people who name that 14er, we'll send you a free tumbler. So go ahead and check that out. I know a lot of you probably have seen that here in the Rocky Mountains. It's one of the more famous ones. It's a lot. Some of you may have even hiked that one, but and it's a tough one. Actually, I've never done it. I've gone good ways up it, but never quite all the way. So anyhow, if you do that, that's some fun. And if you don't get, or if you're not one of the first 20, don't worry. We'll play more of these games. I think this is something kind of fun. I've got the Starlink out here. There's zero internet cell connection, but Starlink's working well. So I just wanted to do that because it's the great American West, and we should enjoy our country a little bit.
I lived in Colorado for freaking 11 years, and I'm sitting there going,
well, don't tell them.
Is that? Oh, I almost gave it away.
The first 20. So yeah. So, but use the /Repill even when you log in to just do that as well, and that'll put you on our contact list and everything like that, and make sure you're connected with Josh and Repill because we're obviously trying to support Repill. And don't forget the good deals: the 4th of July special, the 250th anniversary special, which is always good. And use Repill, you get another 10%, even though they're already discounted. So, if you got any questions, Josh, I'm right here, but I can tell I know you're rushing today.
I appreciate it, brother. We'll have you on here in a few weeks, man, and enjoy your time in Colorado. And everybody go out there, goodbrew.com/redpill. Brew is spelled BRU, so GOODBRU.com/redpill. Thanks, Gabe. We'll talk to you later, brother.
Yep, you take care. Bye.
All right. Does anybody want to know the name of the mountain behind him? If you're actually going to go out in order and be one of the top 20, it's Pikes Peak. Pretty sure it's Pikes Peak. I don't know, but I'm pretty like you can't tell from his angle, but I'm pretty sure it's Pikes Peak. Just FYI. Thanks, Gabe, for coming on. He's like, you son of a bitch, you Gabe. I don't even know if I'm right. I lived in Colorado for 11 years, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not. It kind of looks like Pikes Peak. I'm pretty sure it's 14 by a 13 and a 12, so or 13 and a 10. Pretty sure. All right, let's get back into it, shall we? Actually, one little segue right before we do that. We're going to run this for Rumble, and then we will get on with the show. If you got a dog at home, you already know that they're more than just a pet. They're a part of the family, and they're your best friend. Well, it turns out America's founding fathers felt exactly the same way. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and several of the men who helped build this country all had loyal dogs on their side. Some even traveled with them during the Revolutionary War and were there for some incredible moments in American history. When I found that out, I thought, oh, that's actually a really cool way to get kids interested in history. As it turns out, a company called The Kids Guide is already doing this. They have a guide called The Kids Guide to a Founders' Furry Friends, and it shares the true stories of the remarkable dogs that belong to America's founders. It's beautifully illustrated, easy for kids to enjoy, and it teaches them about people who shaped our country, the stories and the companions they love most. Let's be honest, getting kids excited about history isn't always easy, but tell them they're about to learn about George Washington's dog. Now you've got their attention. I thought it was generally a clever idea, and if you've got kids or even grandkids who loves dogs, I think they have a lot of fun with it. They're running a special offer right now that includes the Kids Guide to the Founders' Furry Friends and some other freebies. If it sounds like something your family would enjoy, just head over to freeusadoggift.com. That's freeusadoggift.com. And no, that's not dog comms for everybody else. Oh my God, are these dog comms? No, dog comms. One thing I can say is that we need to start arresting these people, especially the ones that are interfering with our election integrity. This is New Jersey Governor Mickey Sherrill. She just announced that she will block the release of 6,000 non-citizens to the Trump administration who were illegally registered to vote in her state. You remember they came out with the state database saying it was a glitch that we somehow registered all of these illegal immigrants to vote. And then the software company came out and said, no, it wasn't a glitch. You asked us for that, so we added it in there. Which, to me, I mean, that feels like they're complicit in the fraud. So what's she hiding? Reporter, the Trump administration is seeking, I believe by today, the list of non-citizens who are registered to vote and the approximately 400 that did vote. To what extent will your administration comply with the Trump administration's request in that regard? Sherrill said, as I have said, I am not in the habit of turning over private identifying information of the citizens of New Jersey. They are not citizens. That's the truth. I am working to protect people and their private data here in New Jersey. People like this need to be arrested, and I hope that once a national emergency is declared on election integrity and infrastructure, that these governors and these mayors who are impeding the federal government from doing its job by securing our elections are actually indicted or charged with felonies and arrested by the DOJ. And I know that would have a very, very bad look in the context of President Trump and the rest of the country, but I really don't give a shit. It's time to take down these corrupt, complicit, and treasonous governors and mayors that we have in this country that were, in some cases, illegally and illegitimately elected through voter fraud, the same voter fraud that they're covering up and will not disclose to the American people and to the federal government. Bill Pulte today releasing some more declassified documents. This one heavily redacted. Beijing escalated efforts to shape U.S. policies in China. White House officials warned that the White House officials at Beijing had derogatory information on him in an effort to compel him to take a restrained approach on China. China had attempted to use blackmail against the U.S. administration officials. Reveals the information through social media. We assessed that this threat is credible. Lower-level Chinese officials have recommended collecting and using black materials against perceived anti-China U.S. officials since at least 2019. So this is by the way, this was in the presidential daily brief. President Trump was briefed on this one. But what this is a part that somebody within the White House in 2019, around the June 25th, 2020 timeframe, had blackmail material that China had on them, and they were trying to persuade that person to turn against Trump. If that's not election interference, then I don't know what is. And it'd be interesting to go back to June 25th, 2020 and find out who was fired from the White House in around that time. From Shiloh Marks, and by the way, Shiloh is a great follow. I highly recommend going out there and following Shiloh. He's been posting a ton of different information from research that he's been doing. 44,051,378 voter registration applications received through the DMV between 2020 and 2022 in every single state in the United States of America. So how many of those 44 million that were registered from the DMV were non-citizens or illegal aliens? So I lived in Colorado 3 years, but thanks, Josh, for the hint. You're welcome, Helen. So what do we got here? It's all the different states and the DMV registration data. If they're utilizing various similar systems, which has basically check marks in the context of what it will do. If they have non-citizens that are registering for driver's licenses, by the way, if you didn't know this process, one of the processes that was happening under the Biden administration when people came over the southern border and then they were taking the buses and driving them into the Democrat states, the first thing that they did was get them driver's licenses or state identifications. Why? So they could register them to vote. And I'm wondering how many out of this 44 million are non-citizens or illegal aliens that were registered to vote. And here's the thing, and this is the one thing that I think is the most important about all of this. In that last part we just talked about in New Jersey, out of the 6,000, 10% voted in the election. Okay, that's not a very big number, 600. Here's the thing. The Democrats were not registering them to vote so they would vote. They were registering them to vote so that the amount of mail-in ballots sent out could be conducive with the amount of people registered to vote. The mail-in ballots, as you saw, 200 sent to one address, 87 sent to another address. That is done intentionally when you're trying to steal an election. You can't trust that an illegal immigrant's actually going to vote for the person you want them to vote for. That's absurd. No, you want them to register so the numbers on the voter rolls are conducive with the amount of mail-in ballots that are actually sent out. And then they steal those ballots, and that's how they will take an election. That's the real fraud. Dominion allegedly switched a total of around 435,000 votes and deleted around 2.7 million, with over 1 million in Pennsylvania alone during the 2020 election. Dominion, ES&S, and InterCivic always had internet connections to mainstream media and Democrats gaslit the American people. And this was definitely reposted by President Donald J. Trump.
Systems across the country are found to have deleted millions of votes cast for President Trump. According to an unaudited analysis of data obtained from Edison Research, states using Dominion voting systems may have switched as many as 435,000 votes from President Trump to Joe Biden. And the author also finds another 2.7 million Trump votes appear to have been deleted by Dominion, including almost 1 million Trump votes in Pennsylvania alone.
If that doesn't make your blood boil, I don't know what. So why is this important? Let me kind of lay this out for you. Were foreign adversaries involved in the coup of the 2020 election? Yes. Were they involved directly? It doesn't appear to be. It appears that countries like China were operating influence operations and interference operations in the 2020 election that was most likely part of a larger scheme that was being portrayed by ground units that were funded through private organizations and NGOs. Those private organizations and NGOs, what were they doing? Registering as many people as humanly possible to vote in the 2020 elections, as well as setting up the infrastructure in the 2018 midterms, ensuring that that got stolen. I would like to see the Dominion numbers from that election to see how many Secretary of States and governors that were elected into office were actually stolen elections and put there illegitimately, because that mattered when COVID came around, of which China intentionally released COVID. More on that here in a little while. Was China, so therefore China becomes a co-conspirator. But why is Donald Trump only focusing on China and DNI only focusing on China right now? Because in the context of the midterms elections, that is the most important stressed point. If we simply went out there and said, hey, this group of NGOs basically corrupted our elections and they stole votes and they did this, that's going to be in litigation. That's going to be in courts for a very long time until that's validated and proven, especially through grand juries. But coming out and showing that China interfered and influenced the 2020 presidential election and compromised state voter rolls gives the legal predicate for the Trump administration to move on this immediately right now. How do they move on it? By the declaration of a national emergency anytime between now and election time frame. That is critical because if we want to secure our elections before the midterms, you can't hope for the Save America Act to get passed in the Senate and then somehow mysteriously get implemented statewide by November and not be stopped by radical law firms or radicalized judges, because it would be. In other words, a national emergency is the only route, the only path forward to secure the midterm elections. And that is done by securing these voter rolls, going out there, basically purging all of the illegal non-citizen information from them. Having that correlated directly with the United States Postal Service and the Postmaster General, having the ballot scan QR codes that are going to go on the ballots, matching the actual registered American citizen voter on the voter roll, and then the post office ensuring that that one person only receives one ballot and they're a legitimate person on the voter roll. That is the plan for the midterm elections, and I believe that that's going to come about through a declaration of a national emergency. So what about all this other stuff? Dominion, ES&S. Is Dominion going to go out there and flop and switch votes? Is ES&S going to try to steal the election for the Democrats? My thought is, and this is what I just talked about on the General's Corner. Someone asked me, why is the Democrat Party ending right now? And I said, because they're broke. Well, why are they not bringing in money? Because none of these various different radicalized NGOs or the org, which were basically laundering money into Act Blue through USAID and overseas, organizations, and moving it through NGO infrastructure into shell corporations, into Act Blue, and into politicians' pockets, that none of them are going to take the chance right now to screw up. They know that the DOJ is watching them, that the IRS and the Treasury Department are watching them. They know that there's probably active FISA warrants on all the key people. In other words, Dominion isn't going to allow the election to be stolen by flipping votes in the midterms. Why? Because they know that the Trump administration will catch them, and when they do catch them, they will be prosecuted, and it's over, game over. So they're going to try to play the long game. So in understanding that, the move that Trump is making right now with China is very specific, and it has a purpose. It's for the declaration of a national emergency. Will we see more information coming about statewide election fraud and how it occurred with the voting machines and the flipping of votes and the interplayers that were involved in that? Yes, I absolutely believe we will. What I think that Jay Clayton is going to do is he's probably going to put together a task force very similar to what D&I Gabbard had in the Election Integrity and Infrastructure Task Force, which is still going on the reporting. This is just the first tranche of documents being released, and that criminal referrals will be sent to the DOJ for investigation. Also, I think that this has a lot to do with what Joe DeGeneva is doing in Florida in his investigation. It's just not being announced that the 2020 election and the criminality that was portrayed in it is under investigation there yet, because I think that they want that to be a surprise. One of the other parts about all this is we're starting to see that COVID-19 is being brought into this, and this all hinges on what's happening right now with Anthony Fauci. Before we get into that, though, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals today just affirmed the denial of the Democrats' attempt to block President Trump's executive order on mail-in voting results. The appeal was considered on the record from the United States District Court for the District of Columbia and the beliefs of the parties. The court has afforded the issue full consideration and has determined that they do not warrant a published opinion. Ordered and adjudged that the order of the district court issued May 28, 2026, denying appellate motion for the preliminary injunction pursuant federal rules of civil procedure be affirmed. Huge. So the Democrats' attempts to shut down Donald Trump's original executive order are being denied. Now, we have James Comer warning Fauci that the upcoming Senate testimony, that is tomorrow, is not protected by the Biden pardon. Oh, this is so huge. So what are we seeing with these emails? Emails show leading officials at the National Institutes of Health, including Anthony Fauci, knew the best data indicated no benefit from masks. Why did they proclaim great benefits from masks then? Because these officials were not managing a virus using science. They were managing a population using psychology. In other words, they needed the pandemic. And what I'm trying to show everybody here is the more and more we look into COVID-19 and what Fauci was saying is they upplayed, they amplified the concern of COVID-19. It really wasn't this mass pandemic that should have happened. Instead, it was fear-based psychology that was utilized on the global population to produce a pandemic. Why? Because they needed a pandemic. And China intentionally released it. And China intentionally released it because they needed the global emergency in order to take the 2020 election. Because as Trump has said multiple times before, trillions of dollars were at stake for the globalist cabal. And when you have $1 trillion at stake, would you intentionally release a virus through a known country that even though it's an act of war? Would you coordinate behind the scenes ensuring that that virus was the one being utilized? And would you create a psychological warfare campaign to be distributed globally to ensure that you could steal one country's elections? Absolutely, you would. Would you fund it over a 4 to 5 year period, even know that getting caught for funding this type of operation would cause you your life because it's treason against the country? Yes, you absolutely would, because that's what trillions of dollars do to people who are hungry for power and control. So from MJ Truth, this is the clearest private admission from Dr. Anthony Fauci knowingly bankrolled research that made one of the world's most dangerous viruses easier to spread. NIAID under Fauci funded 2 labs to deliberately mutate H5N1 so it could spread more easily between mammals while remaining extremely lethal. When the National Science Advisory Board recommended redacting the key methods, Fauci rejected that as cowardice. He laterly personally pushed the scientists into a 60-day moratorium once the political heat rose. And this is coming out by Senator Rand Paul and the documents that he's been putting out. So, according to DARPA, this is an interesting part here. According to the DARPA document dated August 13th, 2021, they knew at the time COVID came from a lab, that the mRNA vaccines worked poorly, that ivermectin worked since April 2020, and that hydroxychloroquine worked. DARPA informed the Inspector General, and all parties chose to say nothing to the public about any of it. Let that sink in. Now, why is that important? Yesterday, there was a document released pertaining to Anthony Fauci. It was in his personal diary. It was a writing that he talked about himself, about how he sat down with intelligence agents and were briefed about the origins of COVID-19 in a skiff. This was that meeting. I'm putting that out there right now for you. This was that meeting with that Dr. Fauci was talking about, that he was briefed by intelligence agencies on the origins of COVID-19 that he put in his diary. This was the meeting. And what did they say? For instance, ivermectin, identified as a curative in the April 2020, works throughout all phases of the illness because it both inhibits viral replication and modulates the immune response. Of note, chloroquine phosphate hydrochloroquine, identified April 2020 as a curative, is identified in the new proposal as a SARS-CoV inhibitor, as an interferon, identified May 2020 as a curative. They were briefed on this. They kept it from the president of the United States, and they never released it to the people. Now, just imagine that the head of the National Institutes of Health, the head of NIAID, knew this and instead ran disinformation campaigns against these various drugs that were easily accessible to people. Why? Vaccine, maybe, or to continue the pandemic, to follow through on their psychological warfare to ensure the Biden administration could hit the ground running with the American people subdued through psychological fear-based warfare, as well as the implementation of their psychological dichotomy that they were putting in place to basically enslave humanity. I mean, that's the 16-year plan. They wanted to see if they could perpetuate the global pandemic into something that actually looked like the Great Reset. The problem is they realized about halfway through it that it was not going to happen. Dr. Fauci writes in his diary that in June 2021, this I already had it. I had it right here. Right here. Dr. Fauci writes in his diary in June 2021, he received a classified briefing from the CIA on the origins of COVID-19 while in the skiff at NIH. He reveals what the CIA told him, that they had intercepted Chinese communications in Wuhan, including indications that the Chinese had transferred the pangolin virus from Beijing to Wuhan. Additionally, Fauci writes that the CIA had information from sources that the Chinese military had conducted unknown experiments in Wuhan, and that the CIA had information about the super spreader event in China in July 2020 in relation to a passage of the virus in the laboratory. So Fauci wrote this in his diary. Now, also within that briefing was DARPA. And they talked about a lot of different things. So, Fauci, in his diary, private diary, February 8th, 2020, the COVID fatality rate is not very scary at all, like 0.2 to 0.3%. Fauci publicly, 3/11/2020. The COVID fatality rates are so scary, reaching upwards of 3%. That's a gazillion times worse than influenza. Now, why would Fauci be pushing out a psychological fear-based campaign? Because they needed the people to be subdued. They had just stolen the election. Well, at this time, this is they were about to coup the president of the United States and steal an election. They needed a global pandemic. They needed everybody in a state of fear to the point where people would not retaliate. So they had to perpetuate this. And what this is showing, by the way, is that Anthony Fauci knew conclusively that COVID-19 was nothing worse than the common flu. It was not spreading like they were saying, and that there was various different prophylactic drugs on the market could absolutely stop and cure it. In other words, by withholding this information and the truth from the global population, millions of people died. Anthony Fauci should be taken to prison as a mass murderer who committed genocide against the global population. What does James Comer have to say about the testimony happening tomorrow?
Fauci just perjure himself like that and just walk home.
Well, we're going to do everything we can to hold him accountable. The key was doing all the research, getting the emails, working with the whistleblowers, getting the facts straight, and then giving Dr. Fauci an opportunity in a public setting under oath to give his version of the story. And Jesse, it looks like he lied several times, especially when he tried to twist the definition of what gain of function research is, and he threw everyone under the bus. We've produced emails that showed all of his circle of advisors were bragging about how they could avoid FOIA, how they could avoid transparency by deleting emails, by not putting anything in emails. And what Dr. Fauci said today was, oh, I never talked to my personal assistant. He didn't have access to me. I don't know. He's on his own.
My
and
personal
I didn't,
assistant.
yeah, it wasn't me. It was the CDC that said
Right.
you had to be 6 feet apart. I mean, it was offensive what Dr. Fauci said today, and I'm glad the American people got to see the mad scientist and all the damage he's done to our society.
Okay. So, are they going to ask Fauci the hard questions? The ones that they know are incriminating, that they have evidence that Fauci was involved, to where Fauci lies on it, because then that's perjury. I think that we're going to see that, because Rand Paul, Senator Johnson, all these people, they want this to happen. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with all of this. Looking forward to it. This is the editing director of Breitbart magazine, Boyle. Ukraine-Russia war and Israel-Iran war may already be connected. This is a battle for Western civilization against the rising new axis of powers. CCP is at the center. Russia is mostly China's junior partner. So I like Boyle. I'm going to disagree vehemently with what he says here, but let's listen to it real quick.
Yeah, I agree with your analysis there, Steve, but I would also say I don't know if they are not already connected, right? Like, so, I mean, frankly, it is a battle for Western civilization against, rising new Axis powers. You were just talking about the Chinese Communist Party. They're the center of it, right? Like, but the Russians are not great actors. They're like a junior partner to China mostly. The Secretary of State, Rubio, has made
But hang on,
efforts to try to pull Russia off of China. Yeah.
I got it, but if we could look, we had a shot in the.
Okay. So Matt Boyle saying that there's a new rising axis of power. Let me, if Matt's listening, or if this post gets over to Matt, let me help Matt. During the Biden administration for 4 years, China, Russia, Iran, all of these countries had the rise to their power through the BRICS alliance. You remember when Saudi Arabia basically dropped the dollar and started basically clearing their oil in Chinese yuan? You remember when they started integrating their own financial system to get around all the Western financial systems and all the SWIFT systems? At that point in time during the Biden administration, those countries had the rise of being the new axis if they wanted to be. But instead, what happened is Donald Trump won the election. The Belt and Roads Initiative has been completely dismantled throughout all of Latin and South America, through the majority of Northern Africa, and all throughout the Middle East. Venezuela and Iran have been absolutely decimated, and now the control of 3 legs of China's energy triangle have been knocked out, Iran and Venezuela, one of those legs actually flowing through the southern states of the United States of America. Russia has been absolutely 100% on board with almost everything that President Trump has done. If you go back to the Alaska summit, the day after the Alaska summit, Vladimir Putin ordered millions of barrels of oil to be put out to the sea to not even have a buyer, but they sat out there for 6 months until the beginning of the Iran conflict, when Scott Bessent alleviated sanctions directly on Russia, but only for ocean-borne oil, of which that oil flowed out to the rest of the world and brought down oil and gas prices during the first shutdown periods of the Straits of Hormuz. Now, why is that important? Because it shows coordination, that Putin knew and understood that President Trump was going to attack Iran prior to it actually happening. China and Russia have intervened zilch, nada within Iran since President Trump has been engaging in that war. China itself is economically in the process of massive decline, as well as population decline. Trump has eviscerated them economically. And so to think that China, Iran, and Russia are rising up as a new axis of power is absolutely absurd. If anything, the idea of an axis of power rising up within that 3-country coalition was decimated the moment Donald Trump came into the presidency. Love you, Matt, but you're wrong on that. You got to get out of that traditional conservative perspective and start delving down the road of the 40,000-foot view of geopolitics. This man is my hero. Listen to this.
They are here to eradicate the Christians. They are here to drive us out of our homelands. You have to understand, these people do not want to assimilate. These people have not come here to become Americans. They have come here to drag their third world culture over to our country. If Jainism, if Hinduism is so great, why are their countries shitholes? They are bringing this ideology here to turn the third world is not a place. It is a people. It is an ideology. It is a way of life. It is a culture. And when they bring their people, their way of life, their ideology, and their culture over to America, do you think it's going to remain American? Have you ever looked across the plains of Texas and said, I need 5 million Jeeps here right now to shit in the street? You are selling out this country to people who do not want to live near you. They want to build their own separate, segregated zones where they practice their religion, their food, their way of dress, their language. They don't care about white culture. They don't care about American culture. They don't like you. They will replace you. Their culture in both Muslim and Hindu is pedophilia. And I have the child marriage in Mensur Marudi, which is one of their religious texts. It suggests a 30-year-old man marrying a 12-year-old woman or a 24-year-old man is perfect for an 8-year-old girl. What the fuck is wrong with you inviting these people into our country?
Boom. Spot on. And if you take that in the context with what DJ Shipley said the other day, you can understand that we have a long road ahead of us, that much of the damage has already been done, that these people are here. And the best thing that we can pray for, and this is kind of fucked up to say, the best thing that we can pray for is that their children get Americanized to the point to where they find Christianity, to where they drop their traditional Sharia values, Muslim values. Is that going to happen? Most likely not. The reason why is because of the ingrained nature of these ideologies and how they are raised as children. That's on my X profile for anybody out there. All right. Quick transition. And no, we're not going to run this ad. I'll do this one at the end of the show. But anyways, today, Iran, quote unquote, launched 5 ballistic missiles at U.S. bases in a surprise attack, CENTCOM announced earlier. Immediately after, American and Saudi Arabia jointly struck Iran-backed militia sites across Iraq, a first of the war combined operation. CENTCOM confirms U.S. and Saudi fighter aircraft hit multiple terrorist logistics and weapon sites across eastern Iraq, targeting Iran-aligned militias and the IRGC directed against American forces and Saudi energy infrastructure. The trigger, over 30 IRGC-directed drone attacks in the last 72 hours, none successful. The scale of the problem per CENTCOM, more than 600 attempted attacks on U.S. citizens and facilities in Iran-aligned militias in Iraq from February through April alone. The warning attached, the IRGC and its terrorist proxies must cease these attacks to avoid further U.S. military response. Now, I find it really interesting. Iran launches a out-of-the-blue ballistic missiles, 5 of them launching into U.S. bases, all intercepted. Now, that's interesting. And I'm going to give you a little logic why it's interesting. From what I'm gathering is these were launched from Iraq. Iran is utilizing Chinese ballistic missile technology and telemetry data. They know how to send a barrage of missiles in to hit a target. They've shown this over and over and over again. So if they wanted to do a surprise attack, why only send 5 ballistic missiles, knowing that none of them were going to get through? It makes no sense, because that's going to have massive recourse and retaliation by the United States. And in retaliation, the United States and Saudi Arabia hit Iran and IRGC-backed militias in Iraq? Well, wait a minute. What did we just learn about Iraq 2 days ago? That Ukrainian intelligence are running operations in Iraq with various different backed militia groups to undermine the government of Iraq. Wait, you mean the government that the prime minister was just in Washington, D.C. meeting with Trump, and the movement of money into Iraq from American and other companies to rebuild Iraq? That government? Yeah. Ukrainian intelligence is in Iraq disrupting that government. That's interesting. And so today, when Netanyahu is going to provide no new intel to President Trump that Iran is building their nuclear program again, he's with Zelensky, he's going to say, we need more funding for warfare. Zelensky and Netanyahu are meeting with President Trump, and Iran just decides to launch a surprise special attack of only 5 ballistic missiles that they know will not get through? It makes no fucking sense whatsoever. But the U.S. and Saudi Arabia ends up going and hitting these targets in Iraq. How much do you want to bet that the targets that the United States and Saudi Arabia took out in Iraq were probably those Ukrainian intelligence battalions that were working with various different militia groups that are Iranian-backed? Or, sorry, not Israeli-backed. My bad. I misspoke there. Not Iranian-backed. Israeli-backed. That's my perspective on that. This is what I was trying to say the other night on Q After Hours. Red Panda Koala said, the alien demon from the new White House videos looks like the alien from the 1996 Varhinia alien. He's absolutely right. It's almost exactly alike. And there's a reason why they're exactly alike. The White House is running a campaign to normalize interdimensional and extraterrestrial ideas because of the massive paradigm and disruptive nature of disclosure. That is happening right now. And Dr. Phil is going to have a lot to say about that in the next few days, because Friday, we're probably going to get a new tranche of UFO documents that are about to be released. Remember, I called the last one, calling this one as well. All right, we're going to run this one real quick, and then we're going to go on over to DEF CON. You probably noticed Rumble isn't slowing down. More creators, more content, and a platform that's actually putting users and free speech first. And if you're watching here regularly, there's a way to upgrade your entire experience. Right now, Rumble is running a limited time summer sale on Rumble Premium, and it's the lowest price we've ever offered. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform, no pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you actually came for. Plus, you unlock exclusive content from top creators like Steven Crowder, Mr. Disrespect, special live events, even myself, Josh Reed, and more you won't see anywhere else. Here's the deal. Normally, Rumble Premium is $99 a year. But during the summer sale, you can lock in it for just $69 per year for life. Not just 1 year. Every year you stay subscribed, you keep that $69 rate. No promo code, no extra steps. Just go to rumble.com/premium, and the summer sale price is already applied. That's rumble.com/premium to lock in the lowest price Rumble's ever offered. Ad-free, exclusive content, and a price that never goes back up, but only if you grab it before the summer sale ends. And you guys can find that directly on Rumble, over there on Rumble. And guys, we are going over to DEF CON 0. And so that's in about 14 minutes from now. So I have to get myself prepped, refill my water, get everything ready to go over there. For my my family over here on Rumble, who is, for everybody over on Rumble, I'm going to raid you over there. DEF CON 0, episode number 54, coming up. Oh, I almost reposted it. Didn't want to repost it. We're going to go into here. And I see a whole bunch of people over on DEF CON right now. What the hell are you doing over there, guys? You should be watching my show. Joking. But, man, we are heading into a crazy time. And, guys, I just checked on Rumble. Only 497 likes. We need to get those numbers up. Let's get those numbers up to 1,000 if you can. I need 1,000 likes on this video, guys. Oh, I did that wrong. /raid, boom, like that. Okay, now that's ready. All right, guys. I appreciate you watching tonight. We'll be back with you tomorrow night. Could be a full week of episodes. So I appreciate all of you. You guys are absolutely amazing. best freaking audience in the world. Don't forget to go on over to redpills.tv and check out how to support me and the Red Pill Project. I got PayPal links on there. I got a Give, Send, Go campaign. Just go to redpills.tv. You can help support everything that we do. It's just me. I am the Red Pill Project. There is nobody else. I do this all myself. So help support me. Hit that like button, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button. Go on over to redpills.tv. Learn how to support myself as well as those businesses who support us. So much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night, guys. And we will see you in a little bit on DEF CON, and everybody else. We will see you tomorrow.
There was a time when our children stood tall, hand on their hearts, one voice for all. There was a time when honor had weight, when the flag was a symbol, not a debate. There was a time when our history was known, with pride in the rules that made us our own. There was a time, respect for the brave, for those who bled, for the lives they gave. Now the homeland burns to silent war. Truth is twisted, we can't ignore. Voice still calls, we the people will not fall. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone, patriots rise. We are one, land of the free, home of the brave. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time when truth was clear, when the media served, not ruled by fear. There was a time when leaders stood fast, guarding the people, defending the past. Now corruption wears a crown, lies are fed to tear us down. But Q said watch, and Q said see. The silent war will set us free. From the front lines, soldiers stare, wondering if we're still there. Their blood, their hope, their sacrifice will not be sold for a last prize. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, the veil undone, patriots rise. We are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. Or we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free.
There was a time, the time is near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light,
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!